viewers, this is Radiant Homes coming back to your screens. We have been blessed by Pastor and Mrs. Christian. But now I want to pick up this conversation on communications in families. My name is Andrew Owino, and I come to you with my beautiful wife of 8.06 years.
Why are you
of marriage.
adding years? Okay.
No, like we've been married for 8 years over.
Right.
Is that right?
Yes, just don't
Actually,
make
it's
me
8
old.
years and like 4 days.
Okay. Yeah, we just celebrated our anniversary, and we are glad to be joining you. My name is Diane Owino, and in this season, we shall be discussing communication in relationships.
We believe that communication is such an important subject. It's actually the fabric of all relationships.
Did you just?
But yet, nobody's born talking, nobody's born communicating. You know, my mind remembers a story of an accident. Most big accidents
Exactly, happened because of communication.
You
Is that
are
what you're
right,
going
yes.
to say? You know, there is a story of certain miners in Chile, and these people were mining copper. Unfortunately, on one of the mining episodes, the mine collapsed with all the miners inside, and they tried to explore the pathways inside the mines. Unfortunately, whatever they were using to explore was outdated maps.
They used outdated maps.
Exactly, and the people outside who were looking for them were also using outdated maps to find them. And so the period that these people were trapped inside the mine was majorly prolonged because of
one outdated map.
Exactly.
But also the success of the rescue mission was because the first thing they did was to set up a communication system between the men underground, the miners, and those who are on the surface. Now, friends, whether you look at the Titanic, the great accidents of this century, one thing is sure, that it's a break of communication system. But also, there's an accident you don't want next to your home. It's called divorce.
And many times you'll find that these accidents, they don't just happen in real life, they happen in, every area of life is dependent on communication. I remember a certain plane crash. And what happened in this plane crash, there was one very senior pilot. He was flying one of the planes, and he refused to listen to the other pilots. He was being told, please wait a minute, there's another plane on the runway. But he was in so much of a hurry, and the other junior pilots around him were so scared of telling him, hey, pilot, hold on, slow down a bit, there's another plane on the runway. And because they were too scared to tell him, or he was too proud to listen.
So this is the telling and listening. What happened?
He took off on the plane, and on that day, we had two major Airbuses crashing on the runway.
That's very sad.
That happens a lot in relationships where someone is too proud
to listen.
The other one is too scared to speak up.
Talking about planes, when I was going to Ghana, left JKIA to Kotoka International Airport. Now, the plane that I was blessed to use that day was a very new, up-to-date 747 Boeing. And it had this unique feature of a screen that would help us to track using GPS and speed where we were. And I just enjoyed flying. I knew this one, now we were on top of Chad. Did you know that there's a country called Chad? I could see the ocean down there. I could just see the map. And that map was important in helping me to not just track where I was, but also to help me process what was happening around, whether it was turbulence and things like that. Now, it's important to have an emotional atlas in your journey. That's going to be our first subject today to begin this trail of communication in homes. We are going to look at emotional atlases.
And I tend to wonder, what is it that we find easy to communicate about? And what is that you find very difficult to speak about? What do you think?
Well, I think for us, it's very easy to talk about
church
matters,
the
Bible,
music,
of course. But there are funny issues if you start bringing But we also don't have a problem talking about money.
Okay, yeah, we don't have.
For us.
Yeah.
But it's not like that for everybody. There are couples who, if you want to press the wrong button, just start money. So I think in every home, there are landscapes that are difficult to terrains that are difficult to walk.
Yes.
But in these sessions, we're going to just walk through how can we navigate these things. Now let's start with having details of your spouse's life.
Okay.
Do you know their joys? Do you know their likes, their dislikes, to the extent that you can construct your sentences from their perspective? And that can help you even if the terrain is difficult.
Like, for example, when your spouse leaves going to work, do you know who is their favorite colleague?
Yeah.
And who is their worst?
Who annoys them?
Who annoys them? Do you know what project they are currently working
That
on?
stresses them
And
out.
what are the stresses, in that project? Because it's so important for you to be so aware of what is happening in your spouse's life. And that will help in your communication if you can look at life from their perspective and walk a little while wearing their shoes. It's like a child. Have you seen children trying to walk in mommy's shoes? They're big palms, yeah? And so they have to drag it along the way. And sometimes life is like that. You have to pick somebody else's shoes, however big they are, and try and drag it along your way.
It looks like it takes intentionality. And the opposite of intentionality is inattention, neglect. You see, I want to introduce a big word here. It's called cognitive room. Now, cognitive room is simply how much space do you have in your brain for your spouse, for your children. Maybe let's put it this way. I had someone say that rich love maps are seen in emotionally stable couples.
What does that mean?
A rich love map is where your spouse has a large cognitive room, and Radiant Homes need to update their maps, their love maps, that is, so that we can have large spaces of you inside me, large spaces of me in you. I think that's how I'd look at it. The major events of your life.
Yeah. And I guess that they change every day, that we're not the same. I'm not the same person I was yesterday, because yesterday I went through certain experiences that made me feel different. And so being in a relationship will give you a task of always drawing a map. It's almost like that exercise that you'd be given while we were in primary school, and you're being told so-and-so lives to the north and the chief's camp is found to the northwest.
Northwest. So you have to calculate the distance through the river.
Exactly. And you have to keep drawing that each and every day if you're to remain connected with one another. And the best way to do that is learning to ask the right questions.
Learning to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
For example, what are the major events in your spouse's life or your children's life? And what do those events mean to them? I read of a business executive, a CEO. This guy has a large map of his organization. The vision, the businessmen, the suppliers, and all these things. But this guy can't even tell the name of his child's friend.
Now that is sad. And here are some questions you could ask. I know many wives, when your husband arrives from work, a lot of us would like to ask, how was work?
Oh, no.
And I can tell you the only answer you will
Work
get
was
is good. At least he did a full sentence. Most of them will just say good. Or fine. And, you go into silence. Some questions you can and should ask is, how about that project you were working on? How far are you with it?
But how will you ask if you didn't know I was working on the project?
So you can ask, what are you working on currently? You can ask, what are your hopes and dreams about work this week? What are you looking forward to? What are you looking forward to doing in church, for example?
You see, the other day I was having a birthday, and then Annie wanted to surprise me with shoes.
And what did I do?
Now, she did something that made me feel, I think she understands me. She came and consulted me on some choices. I would have been happy if she brought some shoes, but she knows that I'm a bit particular on my certain things. So when you came and consulted, that for me looked like, this person understands my my preferences on how to approach certain things, and you also took my thoughts on that.
It's called learning. You know, for example, because I've stayed with him for many years, I remember the time when I bought him shoes and he didn't wear them. And so this
But the
time I was
shoes were bad.
no, they're not bad. He just didn't like them.
Okay.
Now, this time I was going to buy him shoes again, and I realized, oh, last time he didn't wear them. And I need to discover why didn't he wear them. It's because he's very particular on his shoes. So I can't go buy something in my taste and expect that he will like it.
I like what you just said. Something in your taste, and I like it. So this looks to me like colonization, where someone just expects you to be the one, you know, learning what they like. But you don't get to learn what they like. It's a deliberate attempt to know someone. They say you can't love someone if you don't know someone. So emotional atlases that we begin with today on Radiant Homes help us to map out your children, to map out your home. Have knowledge. If I should say it, homes go through a lot of challenges. And when we come back, we'll tell you how those love maps, how those emotional maps can help you navigate challenges.
All right, join us after the break as we continue with this discussion. Welcome back to Radiant Homes. Just before the break, we were discussing emotional boundaries. In this show today, we are talking about how to maintain boundaries and keep the gates of marriage. So what are you telling us about emotional boundaries?
Well, there is a good balance you need to have when it comes to boundaries. First of all, the fact that you're married means there is no boundary between the two of you. The boundaries we are building are supposed to keep the two of you safe. But even within the two of you, there's an extent to which the individuality needs to be kept. For example, if you are taking responsibility of everybody else's emotions, I think then you are missing emotional boundary. You can't manage your own emotion. You get angry till you jump on the roof. I think you need to have a boundary even with yourself and with other people. You can't allow people to dictate your own feelings. That's a sign that you have no emotional boundaries. So on emotional boundaries, it is important you know how to respect people's feelings, and this will even help you in your conversations with others to be able to pick up feelings.
So what ways actually demonstrate that you respect somebody else's feeling? If I come and tell you, I am feeling angry, and you say, no, you should not be angry.
They are feeling angry. There is nothing wrong with someone feeling angry. The boundary is supposed to keep other people outside. This person is inside. They are feeling angry. Yes, they are angry. Your children are angry. They are angry. So accept that they are, but there is now the point where to the person who is angry, what do? Do you have a boundary with that emotion so that you know it must not, affect everybody else, where you are angry at work and then you come beating children for no reason?
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. Then also on emotional boundaries, it is important to recognize that marriage is an exclusive engagement.
Exclusive
and that's why
means what?
You stand at the pulpit and you make your marriage vow, and part of that vow, part of it says, forsaking all others. And I remember a certain story that we were told by a pastor just before we got married. She asked us, specifically him, and there are two homes in a home.
Two houses?
Or two houses.
Okay, let's say I go home, I build a house next to my mother's house. So that was the illustration.
Yes.
Then one day I come back.
Then one day you come back and both houses are on fire.
It's a theoretical question, and all the two ladies are in the house, my mother and my wife.
Who will you save first if you only have a chance to save one person?
Well, I messed up on that question. I said I'll save both of them, or I'll save my mother.
Exactly. And when it comes to marriage, your home comes first.
Yeah.
Your relationship comes first. Now, many people have landed in trouble when those boundaries are not respected, what emotions do you share out there? For example, if I'm disappointed in my spouse and I start going to share this with somebody else, especially of the male gender, likely thing to happen is you might develop sympathies which are not appropriate, and emotional connection with somebody else which is not appropriate, yeah, and that severs the connection between the two of us. That can also happen either way, and this can happen through sharing personal information or personal stuff
About the home outside.
about the home or about yourself. What are you feeling that you should be sharing with your spouse, but you carry the things that you're feeling about yourself and you carry them outside. So you find somebody else outside has a better love map or emotional atlas about you than your spouse.
I think the place where it shows you still care and love your home and you've kept its boundaries is when I am disappointed in you, I come and tell you. And that is important. Emotional control.
Yeah, and when you're happy, you
also
come and... So who do you share with? Like your highest points, your lowest moments, your greatest aspirations. That emotional connection, it could be with a workmate, it could be with a churchmate. Those are the things that sometimes and many times lead to infidelity because you do not respect the emotional boundaries. So the next time before you share, you want to ask yourself, should I be sharing this with this person?
They actually say don't tell anybody about your health and your family unless it is good. And let's move on now to mental boundaries. That was physical and emotional. You see, there are people who struggle with this. They think it's not important, but you see it in time management. Somebody can't just keep time. Somebody can't just say no to an activity that is affecting their home. Somebody can't independently think and give their own opinion. There is a joke I see online where the wife has gone to the hospital. The wife is being asked certain questions, and the wife is just referring to mzee all the time. While marriages have individuality, we agree, there is a part where you work together, but there's also ability of just thinking on your own, there's a good story in the Bible. One day, Zipporah, walking out, this was Moses' wife, is it? The child has not been circumcised.
Yeah.
An angel shows up and wants to kill them because a duty has not been done.
Okay.
Well, some of the ladies would have said, what an niulize. But you see, this is already bad. The child is dying. Have you seen someone who is about to die? They can't make a consent for their husbands or wives to be, operated on, and it's getting bad. I think that is a mental boundary we need to build with correct balance of just knowing, here now I have to act, here I have to say no, for the interest of your home, ability to decline things that are going to affect your home. That is an important mental boundary.
It is, I agree. And there is other boundaries like financial boundaries.
Talk to me about that.
So many homes have collapsed because there is no gate, there is no fence around your finances. So your in-laws can walk into your bank account and say, we need this amount today.
Mama amesema.
And because mom has said, all the amount is sent. There are others where a pastor can walk into your bank account and say, we need this amount today.
Pastor amesema.
And then you come back and say, pastor has said.
Or even a boss calls at night and says, come to work. Boss ame.
Boss amesema.
I think it's important. These are important boundaries for us to develop at home.
Yes, so it is important to put a boundary on how do you agree on financial matters. Can people actually come from outside the home and dictate how you're spending money to the detriment of the home? Which priority? Because there are people who their children have never enjoyed their money, but everybody other person
has the attention.
Exactly.
What about maybe there's social boundaries of people that you interact with?
Yeah.
Toxic relationships or friendships. We could talk about inability to maintain good boundaries. And here it can be social media, we can, online or things like that. Is there a clarity of this is my home, these are the things I talk around my wife. This is, this is the extent of, let's call it romance. No, not romance.
Like what should you
Affectionate words. There are words for your children,
Yeah.
words for your wife, and then words for everybody else. Is there a boundary? Do we have a way of knowing these guys, when they are together, they are like this?
Okay.
Or this guy, he's a father of everybody, he's a husband of everybody. I mean, we must work hard to create a demarcation that for my family, this is how it works. And boundaries together with gates make homes beautiful.
Yeah, and the social boundaries come, in terms of communication. I'll share a certain story that I hadn't told him. I'll share. For example, there's a time I got very mad. Somebody would keep calling at 5 a.m. in the morning, asking for prayers. And I'd be like, it's 5 a.m. in the morning. It's still family time, And he had to decide between picking that call and us engaging.
Well, I don't remember that person.
Yeah.
Because I put boundaries on it.
Exactly. So boundaries in terms of how you engage and when you engage, yeah, and where you engage, because sometimes we put too much on social media, things that ought to be left at home, for example. Like I would say, wearing a swimsuit in the swimming pool might be appropriate. But carrying it now to social media might put some people to temptation, because social media is not a swimming pool. Yeah?
I think there's already a problem by the time a swimming pool costume shows up on camera.
Okay, we'll discuss that.
No discussion. There's already a problem by the time a swimming pool costume. Let the swimming pool remain swimming pool, camera remains camera.
So the privacy of what you put out there, that there are things you can put and should put outside there, but there are others who putting them out there is like leaving the gate of your house open, and now it becomes like that home I told you about, where anyone
walks in, drinks water.
Yes, comes in, drinks water, does whatever they want, and they go away, because soon they will lay claim on that house, they will lay claim on that land, and you will have nothing to say because you allowed it.
And it's also important that as we choose friends for family, that it's important that we sample those friends who will go along with us in terms of our values, in terms of their aspirations. I thought of something called influence scoring, where you pick the first 6 families you interact with deliberately, and then you score them on certain things.
Yeah.
You score them on their aspirations, on their religious life, on their discipline. And then the first 2, you recruit those as your members of, I could call them board of advisors. If you have something you want to do, you want to increase more time with these guys, so that they influence your marriage, they influence your children. Number 3 and 4, you can limit their time because maybe they are not doing so well. Number 5 and 6, it's okay to change friends. You don't die for changing friends. But we think that sometimes, well, fences are not changed. But once fences have been made, they are better controls for internal environment and external environment. Until then, we want to ask you, go home, make your homes radiant by having definitive fences, definitive boundaries, but also make the gates beautiful. What do you think?
What I think is, as much as you'll have fences to keep the external, it is important for you to realize that marriage should not let the 2 of you collapse your individuality into one person, and that each of you has a role to grow to the potential that God made for each of you. And the boundaries are not so that you become
Selfish.
one or selfish. They're so that each of you can get to grow to what God would have you become.
And just on that now, just last point. I was just thinking that while you make fences and boundaries, don't be selfish. Open your homes that people can come and learn. Open your home so that people can come and eat, but also open your hearts and your doors for Jesus.
All right, till next time, I pray that you'll keep it here, right here at Hope Channel Kenya. God bless you.